horrifying when a 3-year-old child who hadn't uttered a single word for 3 long years suddenly screamed, "Mama!" in the middle of a luxurious restaurant, pointing straight at a poor, trembling waitress. Can you imagine how that moment would completely change the fate of 2 strangers? A woman barely surviving in hunger, cold, and debt, and the most powerful tycoon in Chicago carrying the pain of losing his wife? Was that waitress truly the child's biological mother? Why did the little girl recognize her? And what would that man do when he uncovered the truth buried for years? A truth that could strip away his entire billion-dollar empire. Prepare yourself, because the story about to unfold will take you from the depths of desperate poverty to the heights of ultimate power, through life and death battles, horrifying family secrets of a Mafia dynasty, and a love that explodes with such fierce intensity it's willing to burn everything to protect the one he loves. Are you ready? The story begins right now. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Alex Truths and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. All right, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. It was a cold, rainy October evening in 2025, the kind of relentless Chicago downpour that seeped through every crack and chilled you to the bone. The wind whipped off Lake Michigan, howling through the streets of River North, turning umbrellas inside out and soaking anyone foolish enough to be out without shelter. I, Emily Harper, 27 years old and feeling every one of those years like a weight on my thin shoulders, hurried along the slick sidewalks toward Gene and Giorgetti, the legendary Italian-American steakhouse that had been a fixture in the city since the 1940s. My uniform, a simple black skirt, white blouse, and apron, was already damp from the dash between the L train stop and the restaurant door. I couldn't afford a proper raincoat. The one I had was threadbare, letting the water in no matter how tightly I pulled it around me. My shoes, cheap canvas sneakers from a discount store, squelched with every step. I was malnourished, my frame slight and fragile from too many skipped meals to stretch the little money I earned. Sleep was a luxury I rarely got. Nights spent in a cramped studio apartment on the South Side, listening to sirens and neighbors arguing through thin walls, worrying about the overdue rent notice taped to my door. I had only been waitressing at Gene and Giorgetti for 3 weeks, a stroke of luck in a city where jobs were hard to come by for someone like me, with no college degree and a resume full of dead-end gigs. The tips were better here than at the diner I'd left, enough to keep the lights on most months, but tonight my hands shook from exhaustion and hunger as I tied my apron in the back room. The place was warm and inviting inside, with dark wood paneling, white tablecloths, and the rich aroma of sizzling steaks and garlic bread filling the air. Murals on the walls depicted old Chicago scenes, and the low hum of conversation from well-dressed patrons made it feel like a world apart from my own. But the atmosphere shifted the moment the floor manager, Tony, pulled me aside, his face pale. "Table 6 just arrived," he whispered urgently, sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill outside. "Alexander Rossi. Do not make eye contact unless he speaks to you. Do not spill anything. Do not linger." Everyone in Chicago knew the name, even someone as far removed from power as me. Alexander Rossi, Alex to those brave enough to use it, was 34, fair-skinned, with sharp features, dark hair, and eyes that could pierce through you. He was the head of Rossi Development, the real estate empire that had reshaped skylines from the Loop to the suburbs, building luxury towers and controlling vast swaths of construction unions. But whispers said there was more: shadowy dealings, influence over the docks and city contracts that no one questioned openly. He was wealthy beyond imagination, powerful enough to make politicians nervous, and a widower whose wife had died tragically years ago. I needed the tips desperately. My mother's medical bills from her long illness still haunted me, and the eviction notice loomed. Swallowing my fear, I whispered, "I'll take it," though my heart pounded like it might burst. As I stepped onto the floor, the restaurant's usual buzz dropped to a tense murmur. Patrons glanced subtly toward the corner booth, the best seat, secluded yet commanding a view of the door. There he sat, Alexander Rossi, carved from granite in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in a year. His fair skin contrasted with the shadow of stubble along his jaw, and a faint scar traced his left eyebrow. But it was the little girl beside him that caught my breath. She was 3 years old, with soft golden curls and solemn brown eyes too wise for her young face. Sophia Rossi, the silent little princess of the Rossi family. Rumors said she hadn't spoken a word since her mother's death, a mystery that puzzled the best child specialists in the city. She sat in a booster seat, clutching a worn Chicago Bears teddy bear tightly to her chest, her small fingers tracing its faded fur. My chest tightened inexplicably as I approached with the water pitcher. "Good evening, sir," I said softly, my voice timid and polite, the way it always was when speaking to someone so much more powerful. "Still or sparkling?" Alexander didn't look up from his menu at first. "Sparkling, and warm milk for my daughter, not hot, warm." I nodded, pouring carefully, my hands trembling slightly from fatigue. As I leaned to set the glass, a faint scent drifted, my cheap vanilla body wash mixed with the lavender lotion I'd splurged on at the drugstore. He stiffened suddenly, his sharp blue eyes lifting to mine with an intensity that made my knees weaken. For a fleeting second, something raw flashed there. Recognition? Deep pain? Guilt that gnawed at him like an open wound? But it vanished, replaced by cold command. "Be quick," he said, his voice low and authoritative. I turned to the child, forcing a gentle smile despite the fear coiling in my stomach. "And for you, sweetheart," I whispered, pouring the milk. Sophia slowly raised her head. When her eyes met mine, those large, solemn brown eyes, the world tilted. A jolt shot through my chest, electric and overwhelming, like a memory I couldn't grasp. My womb ached phantom-like, a grief I'd buried deep for 3 years surging up violently. I hadn't felt this since waking in that clinic, told my baby girl hadn't survived. The teddy bear slipped from her hands, thudding softly to the floor. The restaurant hushed further. Sophia's mouth opened, her lip trembling, tears welling. Alexander noticed instantly, leaning in with panic edging his controlled voice. "Sophia, my treasure, what's wrong?" She ignored him, reaching chubby hands toward me, grasping at my apron. I froze, pitcher shaking, an illogical urge to scoop her up flooding me. Then it came, a small, rusty sound. "Ma?" Alexander froze. His hand moved instinctively inside his jacket, eyes darting to me with suspicion and rising fury. "Ma! Ma!" Louder now, desperate. The dining room went dead silent. Tears filled my eyes without warning. "I'm sorry, sir," I stammered, stepping back. "I should—" Sophia lunged in her seat, wailing with pure longing, pointing straight at me. "Mama!" Alexander stood abruptly, chair scraping. Tall, imposing, he radiated danger. "Who are you?" His growl promised confrontation. "Who sent you?" "Nobody, sir," I whispered, voice breaking, backing until I hit a table. "I'm just a waitress, please." "My daughter hasn't spoken in 3 years," he said, closing the distance, grabbing my wrist firmly but not cruelly. His touch sent a confusing spark through me. warm, protective, yet terrifying. Inside him, turmoil raged, gnawing guilt over his wife's death, remorse for the isolation he'd imposed on Sophia, violent conflict at this impossible moment, threatening his carefully guarded world. "Daddy, no!" Sophia cried, a full sentence. "Don't hurt Mama!" The staff froze. Outside, through the rain-streaked windows, headlights flashed as a black SUV idled. His security. Alexander stared at my eyes, my jaw, then back at Sophia. Faint resemblance stirred his remorse deeper. He signaled his head of security. "Clear the restaurant." Panic rose as patrons hurried out. In moments, only us remained. Him, Sophia sobbing and reaching, his guards, and me, terrified yet drawn inexplicably. He picked up Sophia, soothing her, though she stretched toward me. Turning to me, his voice calm but intense. "You're coming with us tonight, Miss Harper." He glanced at my name tag. "Until I understand why my daughter calls you mother." As guards approached, a suppressed memory pierced me. A clinic, a doctor's cold words. Dizziness swept over me, the world spinning. Horror, confusion, curiosity warred inside. How could this powerful man, this stranger, look at me with such conflicted depth, suspicion melting into something protective, almost loving? But beneath the fear, a spark ignited in him, an overwhelming surge, passionate and fierce, the first crack in his armored heart. Guilt over past failures clashed with sudden, consuming need to shield us both. The rain hammered harder as they led me out. My pitiful life, cold nights, empty fridge, endless struggle, collided with his world of power and wealth. Unfair, absurd, tearing at my soul. Yet in that numbness, a quiet stillness settled. This child knew me. And somehow, impossibly, her father was already changing everything. The rain had turned into a full Chicago storm by the time we stepped outside Jean and Giorgetti, wind slashing sideways, soaking me instantly through my thin blouse and apron. I had no umbrella, no coat worth the name, only the frayed hoodie I kept in my locker, which one of the guards now held out of reach. My sneakers filled with water as I was guided firmly but not roughly toward a waiting black Escalade, its engine idling low and powerful. Sophia was already inside, strapped into a booster seat, her small face pressed to the window, eyes wide and pleading. Alexander Rossi stood beside the open rear door, rain darkening his charcoal suit, his fair skin glistening under the streetlights. He looked like a man carved from the city itself, hard, unyielding, yet haunted by something I couldn't name. Inside him, suspicion still burned, but it warred violently with a deeper torment, gnawing remorse for the years he had failed to reach his silent daughter, guilt that had eaten at him since Victoria's death, and now this impossible surge, a fierce, overwhelming pull toward me that felt like betrayal and salvation at once. "Please, sir," I whispered, my voice small and trembling, the way it always shrank when I spoke to anyone with power. "I don't know what's happening. I've never met you or your daughter before. I swear on my life." His blue eyes searched mine in the flashing neon of the restaurant sign, and for a moment the storm seemed to quiet. Something shifted in his expression, raw, conflicted, almost pained. "Get in the car, Miss Harper," he said, not unkindly, but with a finality that left no room for refusal. I obeyed, legs shaking, sliding into the warm leather interior that smelled of cedar and expensive cologne. The contrast hit me like a slap. My life of cracked linoleum floors, flickering fluorescent lights, and the constant chill of an apartment where the heat rarely worked, against this cocoon of luxury. Sophia reached for me immediately, her tiny hand finding mine, clutching tight as if I were the only anchor in her world. The touch sent a bolt of agony and longing through my chest, memories I had buried clawing their way up. The door closed. Alexander slid in on the other side, sandwiching me between him and his daughter. 2 guards took the front seats. Another followed in a second vehicle. As we pulled away from the curb, I caught a final glimpse of Tony, the manager, standing under the awning, face pale, mouthing something I couldn't hear. We drove north along Lakeshore Drive, the city lights blurring through rain-streaked windows. I stared at my reflection. Thin face, hollow cheeks, dark circles under my eyes from too many nights awake, worrying about rent, about eviction, about whether I could afford oatmeal for breakfast. My hands were rough from scrubbing dishes, nails broken, skin dry and cracked from cold wind and cheap soap. I hadn't eaten since yesterday's half sandwich. My body felt light, almost weightless from hunger, yet heavy with exhaustion. Sophia curled against me, her head on my lap, breathing evening out into sleep. I stroked her curls without thinking, tears slipping silently down my face. Why did she know me? Why did the sight of her tear my heart in two? Alexander watched us in the dim glow of passing headlights. His jaw was tight, knuckles white on the armrest. Inside him, a storm raged louder than the one outside. Suspicion whispered that I could be a plant, a threat sent by rivals to exploit his greatest weakness, his daughter. But the sight of Sophia, peaceful for the first time in years, nestled against a stranger who felt anything but strange, cracked something open in him. Remorse flooded in, for the cold estate she had grown up in, for the nannies and therapists who could never reach her, for the father he had become, distant, armored, terrified of losing the last piece of his wife. And now this woman, thin, trembling, destitute, stirred a fierce, burning protectiveness he had not felt since Victoria. It was wrong. It was too fast. It terrified him, yet it consumed him. Suddenly, brake lights flared ahead. Our driver swore under his breath. 2 dark sedans cut across lanes, blocking the drive. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Rivals?" the driver asked low. Alexander's hand moved inside his jacket, not drawing, just resting. "Keep calm," he ordered, voice like steel. Then, to me, softer. "Head down, hold her." The blocking cars didn't ram us. Doors opened. 3 men in long coats stepped out into the rain, hands visible but postures threatening. One raised a phone, filming. Another held a printed sign, a photograph of me, taken days ago outside my apartment building, circled in red with the words, "Loose end." I gasped, dizziness sweeping over me. How did they know? Who were they? Alexander's face turned to granite. He lowered his window just enough. "You have 10 seconds to move," he called, voice carrying over the storm. The man with the sign smirked. "Message from the north side. You're getting soft, Rossi. Bringing home strays now?" Alexander's guards tensed. I clutched Sophia tighter, her small body warm against my chilled one. Humiliation burned through me, my poverty, my powerlessness, laid bare for enemies to mock. Tears stung again. I was nothing, a waitress, a nobody, and now a pawn. Alexander leaned forward slightly. 5 seconds. The men hesitated. One glanced at the second SUV behind us, reinforcements arriving fast. They backed toward their cars, sign lowered, but the message delivered. The sedans peeled away, tires screeching. Alexander raised the window. Silence fell, broken only by rain and wipers. He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his eyes shifted from suspicion to a fierce, almost violent determination. "No one touches you," he said quietly, the words a vow and a threat at once. Not them, not anyone. I couldn't speak. My throat closed with confusion, fear, and a strange, traitorous warmth. No one had ever spoken to me like that. No one had ever looked at me as though I mattered. We turned off the drive onto a private road winding through Lake Forest, past gates that opened silently for us. The estate appeared like a dream, lit windows glowing through the storm, manicured grounds, a mansion of stone and glass that could house 100 of my tiny apartments. Guards patrolled with umbrellas and flashlights. Dogs barked once, then fell silent at a signal. The Escalade stopped under a covered entrance. Alexander stepped out first, then reached back for Sophia, lifting her sleeping form gently. He paused, looking at me. "Come inside, Emily," he said, voice low, almost tender. "You're safe now." I followed on numb legs, dripping on marble floors as a maid hurried forward with towels. The warmth enveloped me, but it felt unreal, like stepping into someone else's life. My soaked clothes clung coldly. My body shook from more than chill. A guard started to lead me down a hall, but Alexander stopped him. No, the guest suite adjacent to the nursery. His eyes met mine again, conflicted, burning. "She stays close." The suite was larger than any home I'd ever known. Plush carpet, a 4-poster bed piled with blankets, a fireplace already lit. A tray waited, hot soup, fresh bread, fruit. My stomach twisted painfully at the sight. Alexander lingered in the doorway after the maid left. Sophia now in the nursery next door with a nanny. Maine battered the windows. He looked exhausted, tormented. "I don't know what this is," he said finally, voice rough. "But my daughter spoke tonight because of you. She reached for you. That doesn't happen." He paused, jaw working. "I've spent 3 years blaming myself for her silence. And in one moment you..." He trailed off, eyes tracing my thin frame, my wet hair, the defeat in my posture. Guilt and desire and fury warred openly on his face. "You will stay here until I understand why. You will be safe, federal warm. No one will hurt you." I wrapped my arms around myself, tears falling freely now. "I have nothing, Mr. Rossi," I whispered. "No power, no secrets. I'm just poor. I don't belong here." His expression fractured. In 2 strides, he closed the distance, not touching, but near enough that I felt his warmth. "You belong wherever my daughter needs you," he said fiercely. "And right now, she needs you. I need answers." His voice dropped. "But more than that, I won't let the world that made you this thin, this afraid, touch you again." The words tore through me. Pity and promise and something deeper, something that terrified us both. I swayed, dizziness returning, the unfairness of my life crashing against this sudden, impossible protection. He caught my elbow gently as I staggered, steadying me. His touch lingered, electric. In his eyes, suspicion had burned away, leaving only a passionate, overwhelming surge. Love, raw and new and violent in its intensity, directed at the destitute woman who had somehow unlocked his daughter's voice and his own frozen heart. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, something far more dangerous had begun. The morning light filtered softly through heavy silk curtains in the guest suite, casting a golden glow over a room that felt like a dream I didn't deserve. I woke on the 4-poster bed, wrapped in blankets softer than anything I'd ever touched, the fireplace still crackling low from the night before. My body ached from exhaustion, but for the first time in months, I hadn't shivered through the night. No wind rattling thin windows, no worry about the heater failing in my Southside studio. Yet the warmth only deepened the numbness inside me, a confusing, tearing void where fear and disbelief collided. I sat up slowly, my thin frame protesting, ribs visible under the oversized silk shirt a maid had given me. My reflection in the ornate mirror showed a ghost, hollow cheeks, pale skin stretched tight from malnourishment, eyes shadowed from endless sleepless nights scraping by on minimum wage and tips that barely covered ramen and bus fare. How many times had I gone to bed hungry, stomach gnawing, just to pay the electric bill? How many cold October nights had I walked home because I couldn't afford the L fare, wind cutting through my threadbare coat like knives? A soft knock sounded. The door opened to reveal Alexander Rossi, carrying a tray himself. Fresh coffee, eggs, toast, fruit arranged beautifully. No maid this time. His fair skin was drawn with fatigue, eyes haunted. He wore a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. The power in him was quiet now, but the torment raged visibly. Gnawing remorse for bringing a stranger into his home, violent conflict between lingering doubt and the burning surge that had overtaken him overnight, a passionate, overwhelming love for me, the destitute woman who had unlocked his daughter's voice and stirred his frozen soul. "I thought you might eat," he said, voice low and rough, setting the tray on the bedside table. His gaze traced my frail form, pain flashing in his eyes. "You need strength." "Thank you, sir," I whispered timidly, polite as always to someone so much older, in power, if not years. My hands trembled as I reached for the coffee. Real china, steaming rich aroma I'd only smelled in passing at the steakhouse. "Alexander," he corrected gently, sitting on the edge of a chair, not too close. "Please." I nodded, sipping, the warmth spreading through my empty stomach like mercy. Tears pricked again. Unfair, this abundance, while my old life waited with eviction papers and empty cupboards. Sophia peeked around the door then, Chicago Bear's teddy bear in arms, eyes lighting at me. She toddled over, climbing onto the bed without hesitation, curling against my side. "Mama," she murmured contentedly, the word a dagger and balm to my heart. Alexander watched, breath catching. His inner world tore violently. Remorse for the years Sophia had suffered in silence under his protection, yet isolation. Guilt that his wealth hadn't bought her happiness. And now this fierce, consuming love for me. Intense from the first spark, burning hotter with every moment. It terrified him, this pull toward a woman so broken by the world he navigated effortlessly. "I have questions," he said finally, voice strained. "But first, answers for you." He explained quietly. A private clinic 3 years ago, a surrogacy arrangement for his late wife, Victoria, who had struggled to conceive. Complications, he was told. Victoria gone, but Sophia saved. He'd never questioned deeper, buried in grief and empire building. My fork clattered. Memories I'd suppressed for survival flooded back, violent and numbing. 3 years ago, desperate after my mother's illness drained every penny. Hospital bills piling while I worked double shifts, skipping meals to send money home. An online agency offering $50,000 for surrogacy. A closed contract, wealthy couple in Europe. Flown to a Swiss clinic, embryo implanted. 9 months carrying a child I tried not to love. Then labor, heavy sedation. Waking to a doctor's grim face. "I'm sorry, the baby didn't make it. A girl." They showed me a tiny form, wouldn't let me hold her. Paid me, sent me home to grieve alone in my freezing apartment, nights sobbing into a pillow because I had named her in my heart, Hope. "I mourned her every day," I whispered, voice breaking, tears streaming. "I still feel the ache." Alexander's face drained of color. He stood abruptly, pacing, hands raking through his hair. Torment etched deep. If true, his wife had deceived him, his daughter's life built on lies, and this woman, this fragile, impoverished woman he already loved with passionate intensity, had suffered unimaginable loss because of his world. "We need proof," he said, voice hoarse. "Now." He led me downstairs, past opulent halls, marble floors, art worth millions, to a discreet elevator, down to a basement level, sterile and high-tech, a private medical suite with testing equipment gleaming under soft lights. A technician waited, discreet, swabs taken gently, mine, Sophia's from her teddy bear fur to not wake her. "Results in hours," Alexander said. As we emerged, his phone buzzed, his expression darkened. "Stay inside," he ordered guards, then to me, "Trouble." We stepped out to the drive just as tires screeched. 3 black SUVs blocked the gates, men in suits emerging. Rival faction, markings I didn't recognize. Rain had stopped, but tension hung heavy. Alexander positioned himself in front, shielding me. "You come to my home?" he called, voice ice. One man stepped forward, smirking. "Word travels, Rossi. Soft spot now? That waitress from last night? Loose end walking." My heart stopped. How did they know so fast? Humiliation crashed, my pitiful life weaponized. Alexander's guards fanned out. "Leave," he warned, "or don't." Standoff stretched, seconds eternal. The leader glanced at reinforcements arriving behind us, Alexander's men. He backed down, smirking. "Enjoy your stray. Accidents happen." They drove off. I swayed, dizziness overwhelming, legs buckling. Alexander caught me, arms strong around my thin frame. "You're safe," he murmured fiercely, holding me close. His heart pounded against mine, torment peaking, love surging violently, passionate and protective, clashing with fear of failing us both. Back inside, hours blurred in quiet waiting. Sophia napped against me on a plush sofa. Then the technician appeared, envelope in hand. Alexander opened it, face ashen. 99.999% match, he read aloud. "You are her biological mother." The world shattered. I sobbed, clutching Sophia's teddy, pain and joy tearing me apart. Unfair years stolen, yet here she was. Alexander knelt before me, eyes burning with tears he fought. The clinic lied. Victoria deceived us both. Remorse consumed him, for his blindness, for my suffering. But love overwhelmed, intense, burning, from the first moment deepened now to soul-deep devotion. He took my hands. "I will fix this. You are not alone anymore." Outside, the estate stood sentinel against the gray sky, a fortress of wealth enveloping my broken world. In that moment of condensed stillness, amid escalating drama and unjust revelations, something unbreakable began. The afternoon light slanted through tall windows in the library, illuminating dust motes dancing over leather-bound books and a massive stone fireplace that roared softly against the October chill. I sat on a deep armchair, Sophia asleep against my side, her small breaths steady. The DNA results lay crumpled in my lap, the paper a tangible weight of stolen years. My body still trembled from the revelation, thin, malnourished frame aching from the emotional storm, stomach twisting, though I'd eaten more in one day here than in a week back in my freezing studio. Alexander paced before the fire, his powerful form casting long shadows. His fair skin was taut with torment, eyes dark with gnawing remorse that now tore deeper. Not only had Victoria deceived him, but someone closer had enabled it. The passionate love surging in him, intense, burning, overwhelming from that first restaurant moment, clashed violently with fury at the betrayal, making his hands clench and unclench. "We summon the doctor," he said finally, voice rough with restrained rage. "Tonight." Hours later, as dusk fell over Lake Michigan, the distant thump of rotor blades announced arrival. A private helicopter descended onto the estate's pad, lights cutting through gathering fog. Doctor. Harlan Grant stepped out, mid-60s, silver-haired, polished in a cashmere coat. The man I'd seen in suppressed memories, cold hands and grim lies. Guards escorted him inside without ceremony. We faced him in the library, Sophia safely with a nanny. I stood beside Alexander, legs unsteady, dizziness threatening as old horror resurfaced. "Mr. Rossi," Grant began smoothly, placing his bag down, "your message said an emergency with the child?" Alexander didn't sit. He tossed the DNA envelope onto the desk. "Explain this." Grant's composure faltered briefly as he read. Then he sighed, arrogance creeping in. "Complications arise in surrogacy," he said. Anomalies. No, Alexander interrupted, voice deadly calm. Tell the truth, or leave here differently. Under pressure, Alexander's quiet intensity more terrifying than shouts, Grant cracked. Victoria had been infertile, desperate for an heir to secure their marriage and alliances. She faked pregnancy, authorized using my egg when her own embryos failed. When she died in real complications, Grant panicked, told me the baby died, handed Sophia to Alexander, charging fortunes for care. I gasped, numbness spreading, tears hot. Unfair, my grief manufactured, my poverty prolonged while they profited. But Grant continued, sweat beading. I didn't act alone. The cleanup, falsified records, silencing staff, cost millions. Victoria had no access to that. Alexander stilled. Who? Your uncle, Vincent Rossi. The name hit like thunder. Vincent, Alexander's uncle, silver-haired patriarch overseeing family trusts, the man who dined here weekly. Alexander's face turned to stone, inner world ripping apart. Betrayal from blood, remorse for trusting, violent fury clashing with the burning love anchoring him to me now. Why? He demanded. Grant swallowed. The will, your grandfather's. Full control of the construction empire, shipping lines, everything legitimate, only to you upon a verified biological heir by 35. Without Sophia as Victoria's, it reverts to the next in line. Vincent. I swayed, shock disorienting, pain lancing my chest. Sophia, a pawn in inheritance games. My stolen child, tool for power. Alexander ordered guards. Escort him out, permanently. No details, but the implication clear. Grant's fate sealed to protect us. As the helicopter lifted away into the night, Alexander turned to me, eyes blazing with tormented love. He pulled me close, arms trembling. This ends, he vowed fiercely. No one takes from you again. But danger escalated. En route back from a secure disposal, Alexander's convoy faced another ambush. Rival SUVs blocking a rainy downtown street, men emerging with warnings tied to Vincent's growing desperation. Alexander shielded me in the vehicle, his body tense, voice commanding retreat without escalation. The standoff dissolved under his reinforcements, but the message burned. Vincent knew, and war loomed. Back at the estate overlooking vast Lake Michigan waters, we stood in quiet stillness. I whispered, voice timid, "What now, Alexander?" He cupped my face, passion overwhelming remorse. You and Sophia are my family now, blood or not. I will burn it all before losing you. The inner tearing intensified, my pitiful past against this fierce protection, his tormented heart finding redemption in loving me. Unjust worlds colliding, yet in the condensed silence, hope flickered amid escalating shadows. Night had fallen heavily over the estate, the October wind howling around the stone walls like a living thing, rattling windows and whispering threats from the darkness beyond. Sophia slept peacefully in the nursery, her small hand still clutching the Chicago Bears teddy bear, finally at rest after the day's revelations. I wandered the silent halls in borrowed silk pajamas, far too fine for my thin, malnourished body, unable to sleep despite the luxurious bed waiting upstairs. Every step echoed my past. Cold nights curled under a single blanket in my South Side studio, heat shut off for non-payment, wind slicing through cracked windows while I counted coins for tomorrow's bus fare. I found myself in the library again, drawn by the fire's glow. Books towered to the ceiling, leather and gold lettering, wealth in knowledge I could never afford. A crystal decanter of whiskey sat on a side table, untouched by me. I stood before the flames, arms wrapped around my frail frame, tears falling silently as the day's betrayals tore deeper. Vincent's plot, my stolen child, years of grief built on lies. The door opened softly. Alexander entered, jacket gone, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the strong line of his throat. His fair skin was drawn tight with torment, eyes shadowed by remorse that now consumed him entirely. Remorse for the empire built on deception, for failing Sophia, for the suffering I'd endured in poverty he could have prevented had he known. He stopped seeing me there, fragile in firelight. The passionate love that had ignited from the first moment in the steakhouse now burned violently, clashing with his inner conflict. Guilt screaming he didn't deserve this, fury at those who'd hurt us, and an overwhelming need to protect, to claim, to heal. "Emily," he said, voice rough, stepping closer, "you should rest." I turned, voice soft and timid. "I can't, Alexander. It's all too much." Tears spilled faster. My life was nothing. Empty fridge, eviction notices, nights so cold I couldn't feel my fingers. And now, this. I gestured weakly at the opulent room. His face fractured. In 3 strides, he closed the distance, hands gentle on my shoulders. "None of that touches you again," he vowed fiercely. "Never." But the words broke something in us both. Grief, fury, loneliness collided. I sobbed. Why did they take her from me? Why did I have to suffer alone? His arms came around me then, strong and warm, pulling me against his chest. I felt his heart pounding, torment peaking as remorse and love warred. "Because I was blind," he whispered hoarsely. "Because the world is cruel to those without power, but no more." The embrace shifted. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing tears. Our eyes met, mine wide with confusion and desperate need, his burning with passionate intensity that had grown unstoppable. "I shouldn't," he murmured, voice breaking with conflict. "You've been through hell. But God help me, Emily. From the moment you poured that water, I don't know who moved first. Perhaps both. Lips met in a kiss born of years of pain and sudden, overwhelming connection. Fierce, explosive, consuming. His mouth was hot, desperate, pouring out the love that had surged from suspicion to devotion in days. My thin arms wrapped around his neck, clinging as if he were the only solid thing in a spinning world. We stumbled against the desk, hands frantic yet reverent. He careful of my fragility, I lost in the sensation of being wanted, protected by someone so powerful. Clothes fell away in the firelight, revealing my pitiful body, ribs visible, skin pale from malnourishment, and his strong, unmarked form, wealth and care evident in every line. He paused, eyes darkening with remorse. "You're so thin," he whispered, voice cracking. "What they've done to you." "Don't stop," I begged softly, tears mixing with passion. "Please, make me feel alive." The night became a storm of its own, passionate, intense, healing in its raw honesty. Every touch spoke his devotion, every gasp mine of shock at being loved so fiercely by a man whose world I'd never belonged to. Inner worlds tore violently, his guilt clashing with joy, my disbelief at safety warring with surrender. Afterward, we lay tangled on a thick rug before the fire, his arms cradling me protectively. Quiet, condensed stillness settled, broken only by crackling flames and our breathing. But dawn brought new threats. As Alexander drove me to a secure clinic for proper examination, ensuring years of poverty hadn't caused lasting harm, another confrontation erupted. Rival vehicles swerved in on Lakeshore Drive, blocking us at a red light. Men emerged, one holding photos. Me, leaving my old apartment, circled threateningly. Alexander shielded me instantly, window cracking just enough. "You dare in daylight?" he called, voice lethal calm. The leader smirked. "Vincent says hello. Pretty fragile package you've got." My heart seized, humiliation crashing anew, my powerless past weaponized. Dizziness swept me, numbness spreading. Alexander's guards converged, standoff stretched, traffic honking, His reinforcements arrived swiftly. Rivals retreated with warnings, but the message landed. Vincent's desperation grew. Back at the estate, Alexander held me through shaking sobs. "They will never touch you," he promised, love burning brighter amid torment. Weeks later, in the quiet of a medical suite overlooking manicured grounds, a doctor confirmed what my body already whispered. I was pregnant. From that explosive night, new life, his and mine. Shock disoriented me, joy and terror colliding. Alexander knelt, face transformed, remorse giving way to fierce devotion. "Ours," he breathed, hand on my still flat stomach. "A family, truly." The inner tearing intensified, my destitute past against this impossible future, his tormented heart finding redemption in loving us completely. Unjust shadows loomed, but in stolen moments of stillness, passionate love grew roots deep enough to withstand coming storms. The weeks following the discovery of my pregnancy blurred into a strange, fragile dream. October 2025 deepened, leaves turning brilliant reds and golds across the vast estate grounds, while Lake Michigan's waves crashed endlessly below the cliffs. My body, once so thin and malnourished from years of scraping by, nights huddled in a drafty studio with an empty stomach and overdue bills, began to soften under careful meals and rest. Yet the inner tearing grew more violent. Joy at the new life within me, clashing with terror that Vincent's shadow would steal this too. How many times had unfairness stripped me bare? Eviction threats while pregnant with Sophia, grief manufactured while others profited. Alexander watched me constantly, his powerful frame a shield, fair skin often taut with torment. The passionate love that had exploded between us now burned steadily, intense and protective, yet gnawed by remorse, for the years I'd suffered in poverty, for the empire tainted by betrayal, for the danger his world brought. "We go public tonight," he said one evening, standing before a full-length mirror in the master suite. "The Lurie Children's Hospital Gala. Vincent will be there. We show strength, together." Fear gripped me. "Alexander, I'm not ready. I don't belong in that world." He turned, eyes fierce with devotion. "You belong with me, as my fiancé." He knelt, sliding a ring onto my finger, an heirloom emerald surrounded by diamonds, heavy with history and wealth. "Marry me, Emily. Let me protect you, Sophia, our child." Tears fell. From destitute waitress to this, loved fiercely by the most powerful man in Chicago. Shock disoriented me, dizziness swaying as past humiliation crashed against present promise. Tylus arrived, transforming me. Gown of midnight silk, hair swept elegantly, makeup hiding hollow cheeks. I barely recognized the woman in the mirror, still thin but glowing with new life and his love. The gala at the Palmer House was a sea of crystal chandeliers, tuxedos, and gowns. Flashbulbs erupted as we stepped from the limousine, Alexander's hand firm on mine. Whispers rippled. Rossi with an unknown woman, rings sparkling. Vincent approached almost immediately, silver-haired, polished smile hiding venom. "Nephew," he greeted, eyes sliding to me with cold calculation. "And this is—" "Emily Harper," Alexander said, arm tightening around my waist. "My fiancée, Sophia's mother." Vincent's mask slipped briefly. How touching. I met his gaze, voice soft but steady despite inner trembling. "Family is everything, Mr. Rossi." His smile thinned. Conversation turned barbed, hints at legitimacy, inheritance. Alexander deflected masterfully, but tension coiled. On the dance floor, he pulled me close. "You were perfect," he murmured, love burning in his eyes. "I'm proud of you." Passion surged in quiet stillness amid music, his hand on my back, our child between us. Yet torment gnawed him, fear of failing us. As we left, a courier intercepted at the valet, package for Alexander. Inside, 12 dead roses, stems snapped, and a duplicate Chicago Bears teddy bear soaked in red paint. A card. She looks just like her mother. Let's hope the new one has better luck. Horror numbed me. How did Vincent know about the pregnancy? Unfair, my fragile joy weaponized. Alexander's face turned granite, remorse and fury warring. He's declaring war. En route home, escalation struck. Rival SUVs boxed us on Michigan Avenue, men emerging with signs, photos of my old apartment, eviction notice circled. "Return the stray," one shouted. My heart seized. Past misery paraded publicly. Tears blurred vision, dizziness overwhelming. Alexander shielded me, voice commanding through cracked window. "You threaten my family on a public street?" Standoff stretched, pedestrians filming. His reinforcements arrived swiftly. Rivals dispersed with final warnings, but suspense hung thick. Back at the estate, he held me through sobs. "No one takes this from us," he vowed, love passionate and protective amid inner violence. In condensed stillness by the fire, his hand on my stomach, we clung to fragile hope against gathering storms. A fierce late October storm battered the estate that night in 2025, wind screaming off Lake Michigan, rain lashing windows like fists demanding entry. Power flickered once, twice, then died entirely, plunging the sprawling mansion into darkness, broken only by emergency lights and the roaring fireplace in the master bedroom. I woke with a sharp pain low in my abdomen, breath catching. Another followed, tighter, deeper. Fear flooded me, too early. The baby was not due for weeks. My body, still recovering from years of malnourishment and cold nights in that pitiful studio, trembled under the strain. "Alexander," I whispered, voice small and timid, reaching for him in the vast bed. He was awake instantly, fair skin pale in the firelight, eyes wide with alarm. The passionate love that had grown between us now twisted with violent torment, remorse for the danger his enemies brought, fear of losing what he'd only just found. "I'm here," he said, hand gentle on my stomach. Another contraction gripped me. I gasped, tears starting. "It's too soon," I cried softly, dizziness sweeping as pain and panic collided. Memories of poverty's cruelty resurfaced. Skipping prenatal care I couldn't afford with Sophia, laboring alone in grief. Unfair, this new life threatened before it began. He carried me to the bed's center, barking orders into a satellite phone. Doctors en route, but roads flooded, bridges closed. Vincent's men had cut main power lines. Guards reported sabotage. Chaos escalated. Outside, headlights pierced rain. Rival vehicles at the gates, testing defenses. Gunfire cracked distantly, controlled responses from Alexander's men. Another confrontation, bold, unexpected. Vincent striking while nature raged. Alexander stayed with me, candle flames dancing shadows across his tormented face. "Breathe, Emily," he murmured, voice breaking with inner conflict, fury at Vincent, clashing with desperate need to protect us. Contractions intensified, merciless. I sobbed, thin frame shaking, past misery amplifying present pain, nights too hungry to sleep, wind howling through cracks while I mourned a dead child. Now this, wealth surrounding, yet powerless against nature and enemies. Hours blurred in agony. Doctors couldn't reach. Alexander became my anchor. He boiled water on the fireplace, prepared towels, voice steady though remorse tore him. "I brought this danger. Forgive me." "No," I whispered between pains, clutching his hand. "You gave me life again." As lightning illuminated the room, the baby came, premature, tiny, a boy we named Luca. Alexander delivered him himself, hands bloodied but gentle, cutting the cord with a sterilized knife from his desk. Luca's first cry pierced the storm, weak but fierce. I collapsed, numbness spreading, tears of joy and exhaustion mixing. Shock disoriented, from destitute loneliness to this raw, intimate miracle with the man who loved me passionately. Alexander wrapped Luca in warmed blankets, placing him on my chest. Skin to skin, his tiny heart beat against mine. Alexander's eyes overflowed, torment giving way to overwhelming love, burning brighter for us both. Outside, rivals retreated under reinforced guards, but the message lingered. Vincent would not stop. In condensed stillness, storm raging, we held our son, family forged in chaos. Inner worlds torn yet healing, passionate devotion deepening amid escalating threats. Days after Luca's birth, the estate remained a fortress under siege. The October storm had passed, but a colder front settled in. Heavy skies, biting wind off the lake, and the constant knowledge that Vincent was circling closer. Little Luca, still so fragile in his incubator bassinet, breathed steadily under the care of private nurses, while Sophia chattered more each day, her voice a miracle I never tired of hearing. I sat in the sunlit nursery, thin arms cradling Luca, watching Sophia play on the plush rug with her teddy bear. My body ached from the early delivery, exhaustion deeper than any I'd known in my impoverished years, yet different now, wrapped in warmth instead of wind and want. Still, the past haunted. Memories of nights too broke to buy milk, of shivering in a coat with broken zipper while pregnant and alone. Unfairness clawed anew. Why must new joy always carry threat? Alexander stood by the window, phone to ear, voice low and commanding as he coordinated defenses. His fair skin was drawn tight, eyes shadowed by relentless torment. Gnawing remorse for the war he'd inherited. Violent conflict between protecting us and ending Vincent permanently, and the burning, passionate love that anchored him to me more fiercely each day. The intercom buzzed, a guard's voice. "Boss, a man at the gate, says he's family. Nicholas Rossi." Alexander froze. Nicholas. Name from old whispers, his father's hidden son from an affair decades ago, raised far from the empire, unknown to most. "Bring him in," Alexander ordered, curiosity and suspicion warring. Moments later, the nursery door opened. Nicholas entered, tall, rugged, mid-30s, with Alexander's sharp features but weathered by life. Decorated former Marine, now private security contractor, he'd built his own path away from Rossi's shadows. Alexander tensed. "What do you want?" Nicholas's gaze swept the room. Sophia playing, Luca breathing softly, me holding our son. Something softened in his eyes. Not money, not power, voice steady. Redemption and protection. He revealed he'd watched from afar for years, honoring a deathbed promise to their father to guard the legitimate heir if danger rose. Infiltrated Vincent's circle months ago, feeding quiet intelligence, even sabotaging the blackout that nearly cost Luca's life. Shock disoriented me. Another layer of betrayal and grace, blood ties twisted, yet offering salvation. Alexander's inner world tore violently. Suspicion of trap clashing with desperate hope, remorse for a brother denied childhood bond, love for me urging trust. "Why now?" Alexander demanded. "Because Vincent plans to take the children tonight," Nicholas said, "while you're distracted meeting supposed allies downtown. I couldn't let it happen." Horror numbed me. Dizziness swayed. I clutched Luca tighter. Unjust. Barely recovered from birth, now this. Alexander's face hardened. Passionate devotion surged. "You risk everything coming here." Nicholas met his gaze. "Family is choice, not just blood. I choose you. Them." Quiet, condensed stillness settled, brothers facing decades lost, me tearful at another miracle amid misery. But escalation struck en route to secure the children deeper. Alexander's convoy faced bold confrontation on a rain-slicked Gold Coast street. Vincent's men blocking, emerging with demands. Surrender the fraud family or lose everything. Alexander shielded us in the armored vehicle, voice lethal through speaker. You threaten my blood, chosen and born, on my streets? Standoff tensed, civilians scattering. Nicholas, riding with us, provided critical intel. Weak points exposed. Reinforcements arrived, rivals retreated, but warning clear. Time ran out. Back home, Alexander held me close, Luca between us, Sophia in Nicholas's careful arms. We end this together, he vowed, love burning through torment. New alliance forged in chaos, half-brother redeemed, family expanding against gathering darkness. Inner tearing intensified, yet hope flickered brighter. The night Vincent chose to strike was bitterly cold, the last cruel breath of October 2025. Wind howled off Lake Michigan, driving icy spray against the estate's stone walls and turning the helipad on the roof into a treacherous sheet of sleet. Alexander had left only an hour earlier for what he believed was a neutral meeting downtown, arranged through back channels to discuss terms with Vincent's intermediaries. Nicholas rode with him, the newly acknowledged half-brother, now trusted enough to watch his back. I stayed behind with Sophia and tiny Luca, comforted by layers of guards, steel doors, and the illusion of safety that wealth can buy. I remember rocking Luca in the nursery, his fragile weight warm against my chest, Sophia asleep in her small bed, clutching the Chicago Bears teddy bear. My body still ached from the premature birth, thin frame exhausted from years of poverty, now compounded by new motherhood. The contrast tore at me constantly. Once I had nothing but an empty cupboard and eviction papers, now surrounded by nurses, monitors, and rooms filled with every comfort. Yet the old fear lingered. Unfairness always found me. The lights died without warning. Not the flicker of a storm this time, but a deliberate cut. Alarms blared once, then silenced. Guards' radios crackled with confusion, then nothing. My heart slammed against my ribs. I gathered Sophia quickly, her sleepy protests turning to whimpers as I clutched both children and moved toward the reinforced safe room. Footsteps echoed, heavy, coordinated. Doors splintered downstairs. Vincent's men breached faster than possible. Later, we learned a trusted guard had been bought. They flooded the nursery in black tactical gear, faces masked. I screamed, backing into a corner, shielding the children with my frail body. One seized Sophia. She wailed, reaching for me. Another took Luca's bassinet, careful but swift. Rough hands gripped my arms, dragging me with them. Horror numbed every sense. Dizziness spun the room, legs buckled. This could not be happening. Not again. Not my babies. They forced us up narrow service stairs to the roof, wind slamming the door open. Rain and sleet stung like needles. The helipad lights glowed weakly, a black helicopter waiting, rotors already turning. Vincent stood there, silver hair whipping, coat flapping like a predator's wings. His smile was triumphant, cruel. "Emily," he called over the roar. "You should have stayed in the gutter where you belonged." Tears froze on my cheeks. Sophia sobbed, "Mama," reaching desperately. Luca's faint cry pierced me deeper than any blade. Unjust. My past poverty now weaponized to strip me of the only miracles I'd ever been given. Vincent's men held me at the edge, the drop to crashing waves 50 feet below. He lifted Sophia higher, nightgown fluttering. Then Luca's bassinet, dangling precariously. "Alexander will come," Vincent shouted, "and he will choose, the empire or these mistakes of blood." Inner world tearing violently, I begged, voice soft and broken. Please, Mr. Rossi, they're only children. He laughed. Children that cost me everything. Headlights pierced the drive far below. Alexander's convoy returning early. Nicholas's warning proven true. Tires screeched, doors slammed. Alexander burst onto the roof stairs, Nicholas beside him, guards fanning out. Vincent! Alexander's voice cut through wind, raw with torment and fury. His fair face was stone, but eyes burned. Passionate love for us clashing with gnawing remorse that he'd left us vulnerable. Vincent turned, still holding the children over the void. Too late, nephew. Surrender control or they learn to fly. Alexander's hands rose slowly, empty. Let them go. This is between us. Nicholas edged along the shadows, silent. I struggled against restraining arms, maternal instinct overriding fear. Sophia's terrified eyes locked on mine. Luca wailed. Vincent's grip tightened. Choose. Alexander stepped closer, voice breaking with inner violence. You want me broken? Take me, not them. Vincent's eyes gleamed mania. No, I want you destroyed. He opened his hands. Time fractured. Sophia slipped first, scream-piercing night. Luca's bassinet tipped. I moved without thought, primal, desperate. Wrenching free, I lunged across slick concrete, sliding under the railing, arm outstretched. Fingers closed around Sophia's ankle just as she fell. My body slammed the barrier, shoulder wrenching, pain exploding. I held her weight, legs kicking over abyss, wind tearing. With my other arm, I caught Luca's bassinet strap, pulling it against the ledge. Both children dangled, my grip burning, arms screaming. Alexander roared, charging. Nicholas fired a warning shot skyward. Vincent spun, pistol rising toward me. But Alexander was faster, tackling his uncle, slamming him down. Struggle brief, brutal in restraint. Vincent gasped final words. I ordered Victoria's death too, to speed this. Remorse and fury peaked in Alexander. Love for me, for our children, burning away hesitation. He ended the threat decisively, Vincent tumbling into darkness and waves below. Guards secured the roof. Alexander hauled us back, me first, then Sophia, then Luca. We collapsed in a heap on cold concrete, his arms enveloping all three of us, body shaking with sobs he'd never allowed before. I've got you, he choked, face buried in my hair. Forever. Nicholas stood watch, redeemed brother, now guardian. In condensed stillness amid dying wind, family held tight. Poor waitress and powerful kingpin. Children born of miracle and pain. Inner tearing eased into fierce, passionate healing. The rooftop wind screamed around us, sleet stinging exposed skin, as Alexander hauled me back over the railing. My arms burned, shoulder throbbing from holding Sophia and Luca's weight against the void. I collapsed onto the cold concrete, children clutched to my chest, their cries mixing with the storm. Sophia buried her face in my neck, whispering, "Mama," over and over. Luca's tiny fists waved, his wail weak but alive. Alexander knelt, enveloping us all, his powerful body a shield against the gale. His fair face was streaked with rain and tears, torment etched deep, gnawing remorse that his blood war had nearly cost us everything, violent conflict raging between relief and fury. Yet the passionate love that had ignited from that first restaurant moment now blazed uncontained, burning through every shadow. I have you, he choked, voice raw, pressing kisses to my hair, Sophia's curls, Luca's brow. My family, mine. Nicholas and guards secured the helipad, rotors slowing as Vincent's pilot surrendered. The night felt suspended, condensed stillness amid chaos, hearts pounding in unison. But Vincent stirred weakly against the railing, blood darkening his coat from the struggle. Guards moved to restrain him fully, yet he lifted his head, eyes manic with final defiance. "You think this ends me?" he rasped, coughing. I made sure. Victoria's accident was an accident. Ordered it myself. To force your hand sooner. To take what was mine. The confession struck like lightning. Alexander froze above him, inner world ripping apart afresh. Victoria. Not complication, but murder by his own uncle. Remorse flooded anew, for grieving a lie, for nearly losing us to the same poison. Love for me surged violently protective, clashing with horror at blood betrayal. I gasped, dizziness returning, numbness spreading through shock. Unfairness peaked, my years of poverty and loss now revealed as threads in Vincent's web. Tears froze on my lashes. Alexander's voice dropped to lethal quiet. "You took her from me, tried to take them." He nodded once to Nicholas. Vincent's eyes widened in final realization. Guards lifted him. He did not struggle long. The wind carried his last sound away as he vanished over the edge, swallowed by dark waves crashing far below. Silence fell, broken only by storm and children's softening cries. Alexander pulled us tighter, body shaking. "It's over," he whispered fiercely. "No more ghosts." We descended to warmth, fires relit, nurses rushing for Luca and Sophia. I sat wrapped in blankets, feeding Luca while Sophia clung to my side, Alexander never leaving touch. His hand stroked my hair, eyes never leaving us, love burning away torment. Yet outside, remnants stirred. En route to hospital for checks, convoy faced one final bold confrontation. Holdouts loyal to Vincent blocking a downtown bridge, vehicles angled, men emerging with desperate demands. Honor old debts or face chaos? Alexander shielded the back seat where I held both children, voice commanding calm through window. "You serve a dead man. Stand down." Nicholas flanked, providing cover intel. Standoff stretched under bridge lights, traffic halted, tension peaked, until loyal guards overwhelmed, rivals dispersing into night without escalation. Safe again, Alexander held me in the quiet ambulance bay. "No more running," he vowed, love passionate and absolute. "Only forward, with you." Inner tearing eased into fierce healing. Poor Waitress, once shattered by world, now fiercely loved by its most powerful protector. Ultimate betrayal ended, rescue complete in body and soul. 1 year later, on a radiant spring afternoon beside the calm shores of Lake Michigan, the Rossi estate bloomed with life it had never known before. Cherry blossoms drifted like soft snow across manicured gardens, and sunlight warmed the stone paths where once only shadows lingered. I stood at a simple flower-draped altar in a flowing white gown, no longer the thin, malnourished waitress who had shivered through countless cold Chicago nights. My body had filled out with health and love, yet the memories remained vivid. Empty cupboards, eviction notices taped to doors, wind slicing through threadbare clothes while I walked miles to save bus fare. Those years of desperate, powerless poverty had carved deep lines in my heart, lines that now ached with gratitude rather than pain. Alexander waited for me, tall and strong in a tailored suit, fair skin glowing with quiet joy. The torment that once haunted his eyes, gnawing remorse for past failures, violent inner conflict over blood and empire, had softened into fierce, passionate devotion. From the first suspicious glance in that steakhouse, love had surged in him, intense and burning, growing through every trial until it consumed every shadow. Sophia, now a joyful 4-year-old chatterbox, scattered petals ahead of me, giggling in a pale blue dress. Little Luca, sturdy on new legs, toddled beside Nicholas, who carried him proudly as best man, the redeemed half-brother now fully woven into our chosen family. No press, no politicians, only trusted staff, a few loyal associates, and the people who mattered most. Nicholas stood tall, eyes shining with hard-won belonging. Guards patrolled discreetly at the perimeter, but today their presence felt protective rather than imprisoning. The priest spoke simple words. When he asked, Alexander's voice rang clear and unbroken. "I take this woman for as long as I breathe." I whispered my vows through tears, voice no longer timid but steady with love. "I choose you, Alexander, every day, in wealth or want." We kissed, slow, deep, passionate, the kind born of fire and rescue and unbreakable choice. Sophia ran between our legs, laughing. Luca reached up with chubby hands. Nicholas smiled, the family circle complete. Later, under strings of soft lights as evening fell, we danced on the terrace overlooking the lake. Alexander held me close, hand resting where our third child now grew, a quiet surprise discovered weeks ago. His love poured out in every touch, every whispered promise. No more cold nights, no more fear, only us. I thought of my old life often, not with bitterness now, but with knowledge. Knowledge that poverty could strip everything, yet never touch the soul. Knowledge that wealth could build walls, yet never buy true family. Knowledge that love crossed every divide, skin color, bank account, past mistakes. Knowledge that compassion was the greatest power. Knowledge that choosing each other daily was the deepest strength. These lessons shaped us. Education in forgiveness when Nicholas joined us. Education in resilience when I learned to trust abundance after scarcity. Lesson in humility when Alexander laid down pride for love. Lesson in grace when we welcomed a brother once lost. Lesson in gratitude every morning we woke safe. Lesson in patience as children grew. Lesson in joy found in simple moments. Love, I learned, needed no permission from circumstance. It thrived between the once destitute waitress and the powerful kingpin because we chose it fiercely every single day. As music played softly and children laughed, Alexander pulled me aside to a quiet corner overlooking the water. Moonlight silvered his face. "You saved me more than I saved you," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "I had everything, yet nothing, until you." I touched his cheek, tears shining. "And you gave me a life I never dared dream. But more, you gave me love that sees me, truly sees me." We kissed again, passionate and tender, the lake whispering approval. This is our truth. Family is forged in choice and compassion, not merely blood or fortune. Wealth and poverty cannot separate what the heart claims. And so the gates closed gently that night, not to keep the world out, but to hold happiness in. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental. What did you think of this ending, friends? Did your heart ache with Emily through her poverty and rise with her in love? How does this story connect to moments in your own real life, times when love crossed impossible divides? Please share your feelings in the comments below. I read every one and listen to the emotions from deep within your hearts. If this journey moved you, please subscribe to the channel Alex Truths, like this video, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Together we enjoy many engaging stories every day. I wish you all good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. Goodbye for now. See you in the next video.